I've called, I've texted. Her car's in the garage. Her shoes she wears every single day are by the front door.
She only has one vehicle?
No, they only have the one vehicle in his work truck.
3 days later, the man who said he just wanted his family back would confess to putting them in oil tanks. But here is what haunts investigators. They knew he was lying from the very first word. August 13th, 2018, Frederick, Colorado. A mother and her 2 little girls vanished from their home in the middle of the night. No signs of forced entry, no struggle, just gone. Within hours, the husband is on television begging for their safe return. He looks calm, too calm. He's giving interviews, helping with the search, cooperating with the police. He's done everything right, except one thing. He's lying about everything. And the investigators sitting across from him, they can see it. In every word, every gesture, every breath. This is the story of one of the most disturbing family annihilations in American history. But more than that, this is a masterclass in how trained investigators break down a suspect who thinks he's smarter than everyone in the room. You are about to watch a man's facade crumble in real time. You see the exact moments his lies contradict each other. You learn the psychological techniques that turned his story from "I don't know where they are" to "I killed them all." By the end of this video, you will understand not just what Chris Watts did, but how investigators knew he was guilty before he ever confessed. If you have never subscribed to this channel, now is the time. We dive deep into cases that changed criminal investigation. We don't just tell you what happened, we show you how they got caught. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're about to spend the next 40 minutes inside one of the most disturbing interrogations you will ever see. Let's begin. If you looked at Chris and Shanann's Watts' life from the outside, you would see perfection. Shanann and Zusek met Christopher Lee Watts in 2010. She was vivacious, outgoing, a natural-born entrepreneur, working for a health and wellness company called Livell. He was quiet, reserved, the nice guy who worked in the oil fields. They married in 2012 in North Carolina, then moved to Frederick, Colorado for Chris' job. By 2015, they had their first daughter, Bella. In 2016, Celeste, Cece for short, joined the family. From outside, they were living the American dream, but inside that house, cracks were forming, cracks that would become chasms. Shanann documented everything on social media: the girls' birthdays, family vacations, date nights with Chris. She posted videos of their life, happy, loving, aspirational. But if you watch those videos closely, especially the ones from early 2018, you can see something. Chris seems distant, disengaged, present in body, absent in spirit. In early 2018, the couple separated briefly. Shanann took the girls to North Carolina for 6 weeks to visit family. During that time, Chris later admitted he thought about divorce, about being free, and that's when he met her. Nicole Kessinger, a co-worker at Anadarko Petroleum, 30 years old, single, and completely unaware that the man she was falling for was about to commit an unthinkable crime to be with her. Chris and Nicole began their affair in June 2018. Secret dates, hotel rooms, constant texting. Chris told her his marriage was over and that he and Shanann were separating. that the divorce was just a matter of paperwork. He lied. Shanann came back from North Carolina in early August, hoping to reconcile. She was 15 weeks pregnant with their third child, a boy they would name Nico. But Chris didn't want to reconcile. He wanted out, and he decided there was only one way to get what he wanted. On August 10th, Shanann returned from a business trip to Arizona. Her flight landed late. She got home at 1:48 a.m. on August 13th. Her friend, Nicole Atkinson, dropped her off. Ring doorbell camera captured Shanann pulling her suitcase up the driveway into the house. It was the last time anyone would see her alive. August 13, 2018, 5:27 a.m. Chris Watts' work truck pulls out of the driveway. Neighbor Nate Trina's stitched security camera captures it. The truck sits lower on its axle than normal, as if it's carrying something heavy. Chris later claims he left for work as usual, that when he left, Shanann was in bed, sleeping. The girls were asleep in their rooms, everything was normal. But it wasn't. Because at that moment, Shanann was already dead. Bella and Sissy were already dead, and all three bodies were in the back of that truck, hidden under a sheet. Chris drove 45 minutes to a remote oil field site called Cervi 319. Isolated, no witnesses, just oil wells and dirt roads. What happened there, we'll get to. But understand this, by 6:30 a.m., Chris Watts had disposed of his entire family. Then he went to work. At 12:10 p.m., Chris's phone rings. It's Nicole Atkinson, Shanann's friend. "Hey Chris, I'm at your house." Shanann's not answering. "Her car is here, but she won't come to the door. I'm getting worried." Chris, calm as can be. "Oh, that's weird. Let me see if I can reach her." He starts texting Shanann's phone, knowing she'll never answer, knowing exactly why. "Where are you? Please let me know you and the girls are okay. I'm worried." Performance, all of it. At 1:40 p.m., Nico calls the police. Within minutes, Frederick police officer Scott Kunrod arrives at 2825 Saratoga Trail. And this is where Chris Watts makes his first critical mistake. Officer Kunrod meets Chris at the house, watches him closely, and immediately something feels off. Chris is calm, too calm. His wife and children are missing, and he's not frantic, not desperate, not panicking. He is explaining. "Yeah, we had an emotional conversation last night about separating," Chris tells the officer casually. "This morning I left for work, and now a friend can't find her. I'm not sure where she would go." Kunrod asks to search the house. Chris agrees, but watch what he does. As they walk through the house, Chris doesn't search, he doesn't call out for his daughters, doesn't check closets, under beds, in the garage. A truly innocent father would be tearing through every room, hoping his kids are hiding, hoping this is a misunderstanding. Chris just follows the officer around, passive, compliant, detached. Officer Kunrod goes to the basement. Chris doesn't immediately follow. When he finally comes downstairs, he barely looks around. Later, investigators would realize why. That basement was a crime scene. Shanann had died there. And Chris knew that if there was evidence, a hair, a fiber, a drop of blood, he didn't want to be caught staring at it. By evening, this is a national news story. Missing pregnant mother, 2 toddlers vanished, media descending on the quiet Colorado suburb, and Chris Watts, the concerned husband, stands on his porch talking to news cameras. What he doesn't know is that every word he's about to say will be used against him. By the evening of August 13th, Chris Watts had done multiple interviews. He appeared on the front porch, pleading for his family's return. In these interviews, his behavior became even more suspicious. Watch his eyes. In almost every interview, he looks down or to the side. He rarely makes direct eye contact with the camera. When he talks about Shanann and the girls, he speaks in the past tense, then corrects himself. It's like the most amazing person I've ever met. Past tense language is a classic indicator of deception in missing persons cases. It suggests the speaker knows the person is dead. It also displays what's called duping delight, inappropriate smiling or smirking when discussing something that should be distressing. At one point during a television interview, Chris smiles slightly while saying he wants his family back. That micro expression didn't go unnoticed. But the most damaging moment came when a reporter asked, "What do you want to say to your daughters?" Chris's response, "Bella, Celeste, if you are out there, just come back. Like, if somebody has her, just bring her back." Did you catch it? If somebody has her, not them. Her, singular. At this point, Bella and Celeste are supposedly missing, along with their mother. But Chris refers to only one person, being held by someone else. Was this a Freudian slip? Was he thinking of Shanann specifically, because she's the one he had just killed? While the girls' deaths happened differently, investigators certainly thought so. But here is the moment that sealed his fate. While Chris is doing interviews, his neighbor Nate is also talking to media, and Nate mentions something crucial. "I have security cameras. They face Chris's driveway. I gave the footage to police this morning." Imagine Chris watching this. He knows what's on that footage. His truck leaving at 5:27 a.m., sitting low on the axles. He knows the timeline he has given police, that he left around 5:15 a.m. and Shanann was fine. He's about to be questioned. And that's when it starts unraveling. By August 14th evening, Chris Watts knows the net is tightening. Police are asking more questions. They want to search his truck. They want him to take a polygraph test. He agrees to everything because in his mind, he can still control this. He can still get away with it. He has no idea that on August 15th, he's going to walk into a police station and face two investigators who have already decided he's guilty. They just need him to admit it. August 15th, 2018, 10 a.m. Chris Watts walks into the Frederick police station for what he thinks will be a routine polygraph examination. He's told investigators he's willing to do whatever it takes to find his family. What he doesn't realize is that this isn't just a polygraph test. This is the beginning of his confession. The polygraph measures physiological responses: heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, perspiration. The theory: when you lie, your body reacts involuntarily. You get nervous, your heart races, you sweat. But here's the thing about polygraphs: they are not about the machine, they are about the interrogator. The examiner is FBI agent Tammy Lee, a veteran polygrapher with years of experience reading people. And the moment Chris sits down, she knows. The test begins. Baseline questions first. Is your name Christopher Watts? Yes. Do you live in Frederick, Colorado? Yes. Is today Wednesday? Yes. Establishing a baseline. When he is telling the truth, what do his vitals look like? Then come the real questions. Do you know where Shanann is? No. Spike. Heart rate jumps. Breathing changes. Do you cause Shannon's disappearance? No. Another spike. Do you know where Bella and Celeste are? No, the machine is screaming that he is lying. After the test, Agent Lee sits across from Chris and she tells him something that changes everything. Agent Lee, Chris, you are not being truthful with me. The test shows deception on every relevant question. You know where they are. Chris's face falls, not in shock, not in offense, in resignation, because he knows the jig is up. But here's where Chris makes a calculated decision. He's not going to confess, not yet. Instead, he's going to try a different strategy, the partial truth. He admits he was having an affair. He admits he and Shanann fought that morning. He admits he wanted a separation. But he maintains, I didn't hurt them. I don't know where they are. Agent Lee doesn't believe him, and she tells him so. Agent Lee, Chris, I think you know more than what you are telling me. And I think it's eating you up inside. I can see it. You're not a monster. Something happened. Let me help you. This is a classic interrogation technique. Minimization. You make the suspect feel like confessing is the path to relief, to understanding, to redemption. But Chris doesn't bite. Not yet. For hours, they go back and forth. Agent Lee, CBI agent Graham Coder, they tag team him. One asks questions, the other observes body language. They tell him they understand, that marriages are hard, that fights get out of control, that sometimes people snap. They are giving him an out, a way to frame this as an accident, not premeditated murder. And finally, around 5 p.m., Chris asks for a moment alone. He's told he can leave anytime. He's not under arrest. This is all voluntary. But he doesn't leave because he knows that if he walks out that door, the next time he sees these investigators, they'll be reading him his rights. The camera in the corner of the room captures him, sitting, thinking, wrestling with his decision. And then he makes a choice that will change the rest of his life. He calls them back in. I need to tell you something, he says. I need to tell you something. Agent Tamili leans forward. Agent Graham Coder's pen hovers over his notepad. The recording device is running, and Chris Watts begins to talk. But he doesn't confess, not to everything. Instead, he tells them a story, a carefully constructed narrative designed to minimize his culpability. Shanann killed the girls. Agent Lee's face doesn't change. She expected something like this. Blame shifting is common in family annihilator cases. Kill your family, then blame the mother. I told her I wanted a separation. We fought. I went upstairs to talk to the girls, to tell them I was leaving. And when I came back down, I looked at the baby monitor and I saw Shanann in Sissy's room. She was smothering her, strangling her. I ran upstairs. She was blue, not breathing, and Bella was on her bed, and she wasn't moving either. Shanann had already. His voice breaks, tears start to form, but investigators aren't buying it. Chris, stop. Just stop for a second. You're telling me that Shanann killed both girls, and then what? You killed Shanann? I was so angry. I saw what she'd done, and I strangled her on the bed. And then what did you do? Agent Lee asked. Chris, I didn't know what to do. I panicked. I put them all in my truck. I drove to Cervi, and I buried Shanann, and I put the girls. He can't finish the sentence. Where did you put the girls, Chris? Agent Lee said. Chris, in the oil tanks. The agents exchanged glances. The room goes silent. This is the moment, the confession to disposing of the bodies. But the story is telling that Shanann killed the girls is obviously false, and Agents Lee and Coda know it. Agent Coda, Chris, I want you to think very carefully about what you just told me. You're saying you saw Shanann killing Sissy on the baby monitor from downstairs? Chris said yes. Agent Coda, Chris, we checked the baby monitor. There's no video footage from that night. It doesn't record. It only live streams. And if you were downstairs, you couldn't have seen anything unless you were watching it in real time. The story is falling apart. Agent Lee says, Chris, I don't think Shanann killed those girls. I think you did. I think you need to tell us the truth. Not for us, for them, for Bella, for Sissy. They deserve the truth. Chris sits in silence for what feels like minutes, but is only about 30 seconds. His hands are shaking. His leg is bouncing under the table. Agent Coda says, Chris, did Bella see you kill Shanann? There's a long pause, and Chris says, yes. And there it is, the admission that changes everything. If Bella saw him kill Shanann, then Shanann was killed first, which means Shanann couldn't have killed the girls. His entire story just collapsed. Agent Lee says, what did Bella say, Chris, when she saw you? Chris answered. She said, Daddy, what are you doing to Mommy? This 4-year-old child watched her father kill her mother, and she knew what she was seeing. And then what happened? Agent Lee asked. Chris said, I took the girls in the truck. They were alive. I don't know what I thought. I drove to Cervi with them. Agent Coda, were they awake? Were they talking? Chris answered. Bella asked, is Mommy okay? I told her Mommy wasn't feeling well. He took his daughters on a 45-minute drive to their death, and they asked him if their mother was okay. Agent Lee, what happened when you got to Cervi? Chris. And Chris answered, I backed the truck up to one of the tanks. I carried Sissy first. She was asleep. I put a blanket over her and I smothered her. It took a few minutes, and then he starts crying harder. Agent Lee, and then what? Chris, and then I put her in the tank. There's a hatch, 8 inches wide. I had to force her through. An 8-inch opening for a 3-year-old's body. The physical mechanics of that, it's unimaginable. What about Bella? Chris answered. Bella was standing outside the truck. She saw me. She said, Daddy, what happened to Sissy? And I told her Sissy was sick. And then he can't say it. Agent Lee softly asked, what did you do to Bella, Chris? Chris answered, I smothered her too, with a blanket. And she said, Daddy, no, she begged me not to. This 4-year-old child, having just watched her father disposed of her sister's body, begged him not to kill her, and he did it anyway. But even this confession, this horrifying admission, isn't the complete truth. Chris Watts has admitted to killing all 3, to disposing of their bodies, to smothering his own daughters who begged him to stop. But investigators know there's more, because his timeline still doesn't make sense. Agent Coda asked, Chris, I need you to walk me through Monday night, August 12th. When Shanann came home, what time did she get there? Chris said, around 2 a.m., maybe 1:48. Her friend dropped her off. Agent Coda asked, and were you awake? Chris, yeah, I was in bed, but I was awake. Agent Lee, did you talk to her? Chris, we had a conversation about the separation. Agent Lee, at 2 a.m., when she'd just gotten back from a trip? Chris' version of events keeps changing. First, he claimed he left in the morning and they were all fine. Then he said Shanann killed the girls and he snapped. Now he's admitting he killed everyone, but claims it happened spontaneously after an argument. But investigators have evidence that suggests otherwise. The evidence tells a different story. At 1:48 a.m., Shanann arrives home. Ring doorbell footage shows that. 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., her phone stops all activity, unusual for her. 4:23 a.m., Chris's phone downloads battery acid app. I take that again. At 4:23 a.m., Chris's phone downloads battery acid app. Investigators find this later. By 5:27 a.m., Chris's truck leaves, sitting low on axles. Agent Coda asked Chris, we know from Shanann's phone that all activity stopped around 2 a.m. Her phone alarm never went off in the morning. She didn't check Facebook, Instagram, nothing. That's not like her, is it? Chris said no, she was always on her phone. Agent Coda, so what does that tell you? Chris, I killed her that night when she got home. Agent Lee, before you put the girls in the truck, were they already dead? This is the question, the one that will reveal whether Chris Watts is a man who snapped in a moment of rage or a calculating killer who planned everything. I'll take that again. Agent Lee asked, before you put the girls in the truck, were they already dead? This is the question, the one that will reveal whether Chris Watts is a man who snapped in a moment of rage or a calculating killer who planned everything. Chris said, no, they were alive. I put them in the back seat. Agent Lee, Chris, I need you to think very carefully. Were Bella and Sissy alive when you left the house? Why does this matter? Because if he killed them at home, this was premeditated. He had time to think, to stop, to change his mind. But if he kills them at Cervi, he can claim it was panic, confusion, a decision made in the moment. Chris answered, they were alive, I swear. They were in the truck. But investigators don't believe him, and they have a reason. Agent Coda, Chris, when we recover the bodies, and we will, there's going to be an autopsy, and that autopsy is going to tell us where and when they died. If you're lying to us now, we're going to know. Chris answered, I am telling you the truth. They were alive in the truck. He's sticking to his story, but investigators have doubts, big doubts, because there's something Chris doesn't know, something the medical examiner will discover when they recover Bella's body from the oil tank. But we'll get to that. Agent Lee asked, Chris, why? Why did you do this? You had a beautiful family. Shanann loved you. The girls adored you. You had another baby on the way. Why? This is the question everyone wants answered. What could possibly motivate a father to annihilate his entire family? Chris answered, I don't know. I wanted to be with Nikki. I wanted to start over. And Shanann wouldn't let me go. She wanted to work things out, but I didn't want to. And I couldn't see another way. Agent Skoda asked, so you killed them? You killed your pregnant wife and your two little girls because you wanted a new life? Chris answered quietly, yes. Not rage, not insanity, not self-defense, just convenience. He killed them because it was easier than divorce. Agent Lee asked, Chris, what did you do with Shannon's wedding ring? Chris, I think I left it at the house. Agent Lee, you think or you know? Chris, I took it off her finger at Cervi before I buried her and I put it in my pocket. Agent Koda asked, why? Chris answered, I don't know. But investigators know why. Killers often take trophies, items that remind them of their victims, of their power over them. Chris Watts kept his dead wife's wedding ring in his pocket while he disposed of her body and killed his daughters. Agent Lee asked, Chris, is there anything else you need to tell us? Anything you're still holding back? Chris, after a long pause, no, that's everything. Agent Koda, you're sure? Because once we go out to Cervi, once we recover those bodies, there's no going back. If there's anything you need to tell us, now is the time. Chris answered, that's everything, I swear. He's lying, but investigators will let the evidence speak for itself. Agent Lee said, okay, Chris, we are going to take a break. You sit tight. They leave the room. Chris sits alone, head in his hands. He thinks the worst is over, that he's confessed to everything, and now just has to face the consequences. He has no idea that the nightmare is just beginning. August 16th, 2018. FBI agents, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Frederick Police, and Weld County officials descend on Cervi 319, a remote oil well site 45 minutes from the Watts home. Chris has given them directions. He's told them where to find the bodies, but nothing can prepare them for what they are about to discover. The site is isolated, miles from the nearest house, just oil infrastructure, death, and sky. It's the perfect place to hide evidence, or so Chris thought. The first priority, Shanann. Chris told investigators he buried her in a shallow grave near one of the oil batteries. The team brings ground-penetrating radar, cadaver dogs, excavating equipment. Within hours, they found her. Shannon's body is in a shallow grave, barely 18 inches deep. She's face down in the dirt. She's still wearing the shirt she had on when she came home that night. A purple shirt with the word "Oops" on it from a photo shoot for her work. The medical examiner confirms cause of death is strangulation and smothering. Defensive wounds on her neck suggest she fought for her life. But there's something else. Something that makes this even more heartbreaking. The fetus, baby Nico, is visible. Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant. Nico would have been born in January 2019. Chris Watts didn't just kill his wife. He killed his unborn son. But the girls are going to be harder to recover. Chris told investigators he put Bella and Sissy into oil tanks. These tanks were full, hold about 400 barrels of crude oil each. They are tall, cylindrical, industrial, and they have only one opening, a hatch on the top, 8 inches in diameter. 8 inches. Recovery teams bring specialized equipment. They need to drain the tanks without contaminating the bodies, without losing any evidence. It takes hours. The smell is overwhelming. Crude oil mixed with decomposition. First responders wear asthma suits, respirators. They locate CC first, tank A, the smaller tank. Her body is wedged inside, submerged in oil. The team carefully extract her through the 8-inch arch, the same arch her father forced her body through 3 days earlier. CC is barely recognizable. The oil has degraded her skin, her features, but the medical examiner confirms her identity through dental records and DNA. Cause of death, smothering and strangulation. But it's Bella's recovery that reveals the most horrifying truth. Tank B, the larger tank. When they drain it and begin recovery, they find Bella's body. Like her sister, she's been forced through that 8-inch opening. But the medical examiner finds something that contradicts everything Chris told investigators. There is crude oil in Bella's stomach, in her lungs. That means Bella was still alive when she went into that tank. She was breathing when Chris dropped her into the oil. She aspirated it, inhaled it, swallowed it. This 4-year-old little girl didn't die from smoldering like Chris claimed. She drowned in crude oil, in darkness, in a metal tank, terrified and alone. The medical examiner also finds something else. Bella bit her tongue nearly in half, a defensive injury, the kind of injury that happens when somebody is fighting for their life. When investigators receive the autopsy results, they know Chris lied again. He didn't smother the girls at Cervi and then place them in the tanks. He dropped them in alive, or at least Bella was alive. Why would he do this? Why not finish killing them first? Investigators believe it's because smothering takes time, minutes, and Chris was in a hurry. He had to get to work, had to maintain his alibi. So he took a shortcut. He dropped his daughters into oil tanks and let them die there. By the evening of August 16th, all 3 bodies have been recovered. Shanann, Bella, and Celeste Watts are transported to the coroner's office, and Chris Watts, in custody, is informed of the autopsy findings. He has nothing to say. August 16, 2018, 11:30 p.m. Christopher Lee Watts is formally arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder after deliberation, 2 counts of murdering a child under 12, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy, 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body. The story explodes nationally. Cable news devotes hours to it. Social media erupts. People are horrified, fascinated, desperate to understand how a seemingly normal father could do something so monstrous. But the investigation isn't over. Because now, investigators need to understand the why. And to do that, they need to understand Chris Watts' life before the murders. Nicole Kessinger, Chris's mistress, cooperates fully with investigators. She's devastated. She had no idea Chris's family was in danger. She genuinely believed Chris was separated from his wife, that a divorce was in progress. He told me his marriage was over, said Nicole, that they were just waiting for the paperwork. He seemed so normal, so kind. I never would have thought. In the days before the murders, Chris and Nicole were texting constantly, planning their future, looking at apartments, talking about trips they would take, places they would go. On August 10th, the day Shanann came home from Arizona, Chris texted Nicole, I am ready for change. I'm ready for my new life. 3 days later, Shanann, Bella, and Sissy were dead. Investigators began building a timeline of Chris's planning. July 2018, affair with Nico begins. Chris starts distancing from Shanann, stops wearing wedding ring, changes phone password. Early August, researches selling house while Shanann is in Arizona. Google searches how to get away with murder, never actually found but rumored. Tells Nicole is almost free. August 12th, Shanann returns from trip. Chris has already decided what he's going to do. He waits until she's asleep. But there's one search that haunts investigator. On August 13th, after killing his family, but before reporting them missing, Chris's phone searches for, do people hate you after filing for bankruptcy? Not I killed my family. Not panic. He's worried about bankruptcy, about his image, about what people will think of him. Forensic psychologists who review the case conclude Chris Watts is a textbook narcissist with no empathy. He didn't see Shanann, Bella, and Sissy as people. He saw them as obstacles to the life he wanted. On August 20th, 2018, Shanann's parents make a public statement. Frank Suzek. We trusted him. He was part of our family, and he killed our daughter, our granddaughters, our grandson, who never got to be born. We will never understand why, but we will make sure he pays for what he did. The public agrees. Across social media, across the country, people are united in their rage at Chris Watts. Videos are held for Shanann, Bella, and Sissy. Their story becomes a symbol of how evil can hide behind a smile. Justice for Shanann, death penalty for Chris Watts. It took everything. Protests erupts. Chris's defense attorneys face an impossible task. Their client confessed. The bodies have been found. The evidence is overwhelming. Their only strategy, avoid the death penalty. Colorado still has capital punishment in 2018. And this case, a man who murdered his pregnant wife and two toddlers, is exactly the kind of case that judges give death sentences for. But on November 6, 2018, something unexpected happens. Shannon's family makes an announcement through their attorney. They do not want Chris Watts to face the death penalty. Why? Frank Suzek's statement read, we don't want him to have the attention. We don't want years of appeals, of him in the news, of him getting to tell his story over and over. We want him to disappear. We want him forgotten. And the only way to do that is life in prison without parole. It's a devastating decision to deny him even the martyrdom of execution, to condemn him to die slowly, anonymously in a cell. On November 19, 2018, Christopher Watts appears in court for sentencing. November 19, 2018, the courtroom is packed. Media, Shannon's family, Chris's family, curious onlookers who got seats. Everyone wants to see justice served. Chris Watts enters in an orange jumpsuit, shackled. He's lost weight. He looks small, diminished. Nothing like the confident man who appeared on television 2 months earlier begging for his family's return. Judge Kopkow begins the proceeding. Chris has agreed to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for life in prison without parole. No trial, no jury, just judgment. Judge Kopkow said, Mr. Watts, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are waiving your rights to a trial and you will spend the rest of your life in prison? Chris answered quietly, yes, Your Honor. The judge said, before I impose sentence, the victim's family members have prepared impact statements. Mr. and Mrs. Suzek, you may proceed. Frank Suzek, Shannon's father, looks directly at Chris. His hands shake as he holds his written statement. He said, "You sat across from me and ate at my table. You called me dad. I trusted you with the most precious thing in my life, my daughter, and you destroyed her. You destroyed Bella and Sissy. You killed my grandson before he ever took a breath. Those girls loved you. They called you daddy. They trusted you, and you murdered them. You put them in oil tanks like they were trash. I will never understand how you could do that, but I don't need to understand. I just need to know that you rot in prison for the rest of your life." Sandra Suzek can barely speak. She holds a photo of Shanann, Bella, and Sissy. She said, "I will never hold my granddaughters again. I will never hear them call me grandma. Shanann will never get to be the mother she wanted to be to her son. You took everything from us. Everything. I hope every day for the rest of your life you see their faces. I hope you hear Bella saying, 'Daddy, no.' I hope it haunts you forever." Chris sits motionless, no tears, no reaction, just blank. Some interpret this as remorse, shame so deep is shut down. Others sees it as what it probably is, narcissistic injury. He's not sorry for what he did. He's sorry he got caught. The judge. "Mr. Watts, you have admitted to three of the most heinous crimes imaginable. You murdered your wife, who was carrying your child. You murdered your two young daughters, who looked to you for protection and love. And then you disposed of their bodies with no more care than one would give to garbage. I have been a judge for many years. I have seen terrible things, but this is evil. Pure evil. And the only appropriate sentence is that you never see the outside of a prison again." Christopher Lee Watts, I hereby sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Shanann Watts. Life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Bella Watts. Life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Celeste Watts. 48 years for unlawful termination of pregnancy. 12 years for each count of tampering with a deceased body. These sentences are to run consecutively. You will die in prison, Mr. Watts, and that is the only justice we can give to the victims." Miss Watts is escorted out of the courtroom. He doesn't look back, doesn't acknowledge anyone. He will be transferred to Wisconsin's Dodge Correctional Institution, where he remains to this day in protective custody. He is 40 years old. Statistically, he will live another 30 to 40 years in that cell. And every single one of those days, he will be known as the man who murdered his pregnant wife and two little girls. The Chris Watts case has become one of the most studied family annihilation cases in modern history. Netflix produced a documentary, American Murder: The Family Next Door. Countless YouTube channels have analyzed every second of the body camera footage, every interview, every detail. Books have been written. Podcasts have devoted dozens of episodes to it. But why? What makes this case so compelling and so horrifying? Dr. Lena Dearlee, forensic psychologist, wrote a book analyzing Chris Watts. Her conclusion is a family annihilator, a specific type of killer who murders their entire family, usually to start a new life or out of narcissistic rage. Family annihilators share common traits: narcissistic personality, see family as possessions, not people, unable to handle loss of control, choose murder over divorce due to ego, often appear normal, even charming. Chris checked every box. He wanted a new life with Nicole, but divorce meant losing the house, paying child support, being seen as the bad guy who left his pregnant wife, losing control of the narrative. His ego couldn't handle that, so he chose murder. One question haunts the case. What did Nicole know? Was she an innocent victim, manipulated by a sociopath, or was she more involved than she admitted? The evidence suggests she was genuinely unaware. Are Google searches after the murders? Can the police find deleted texts? What does it feel like to be a mistress? Suggest panic, not guilty, knowledge. She cooperated fully with investigators. She's never been charged with anything. But public opinion is divided. Some see her as a victim. Others blame her for igniting the fuse that led to the murders. Nicole Kessinger changed her name after the trial. She moved. She disappeared from public life. She's reportedly in witness protection, though this has never been confirmed. She gave one interview to investigators and has never spoken publicly since. But this story isn't about Chris Watts, it's about the people he destroyed. Shanann Ann Watts was 34 years old when she died. She was a devoted mother, a successful businesswoman, a loving wife. She documented her life because she was proud of it, because she loved her family, because she wanted to share her joy. Bella Mary Watts was 4 years old. She loved school, loved her little sister, loved her mommy and daddy. She was smart, sensitive, protective. Celeste Cece Watts was 3 years old. She was bubbly, funny, full of energy. She loved dancing, loved laughing, loved life. Nicole Watts never got to be born, never got to meet his sisters, never got to experience anything. They weren't just victims, they were people, and they deserve so much better than what Chris Watts gave them. Shanann, Bella, and Cece are buried together in North Carolina, near Shannon's family. Their grave is visited regularly by people who never met them but feel connected to their story. So, what can we learn from this case? Lesson 1: Trust your instincts. Officer Scott Coonrod knew something was wrong the moment he met Chris. Shannon's friend Nicole knew something was wrong when Shanann didn't answer her phone. Trust those feelings. Lesson 2: Abusers hide in plain sight. Chris seemed like a great husband, a loving father, but behind closed doors, he was controlling, manipulative, and ultimately homicidal. The perfect facade often hides darkness. Lesson 3: Behavior reveals truth. Every lie Chris told, his body contradicted. Micro expressions, body language, verbal slips. Trained investigators caught them all. You can't fully control your body when you are lying about something this big. Lesson 4: Digital evidence never lies. Security cameras, phone records, GPS data, text messages. The digital trail led investigators right to Chris. In the modern age, it's almost impossible to commit a crime without leaving digital evidence. Lesson 5: Justice requires courage. Shannon's family had to relive their trauma in court, had to listen to the details of how their loved ones died. But they did it for justice, for Shanann, for Bella, and Cece. Today, Christopher Watts sits in a cell in Wisconsin. He is in protective custody because even among criminals, child killers are despised. He reportedly spends his days reading the Bible, writing letters to his parents, and claiming he's found God. Some of those letters have leaked. In them, Chris talks about missing his daughters, about wishing he could go back and change things. But notably, he rarely mentions Shanann. In 2019, Chris Watts agreed to a 5-hour interview with investigators, a confession interview where he was supposed to finally tell the complete truth. And what he revealed was somehow even worse than anyone imagined. He admitted that he had been planning the murders for weeks, that he had researched it, that when Bella walked in and saw him putting Sissy's body in the truck, he told her, Sissy is sick. We need to take her to the hospital. And Bella believed him because he was her daddy. And daddies don't lie to their little girls. He also admitted something that contradicts even his previous confessions, that Shanann may have briefly regained consciousness after he thought she was dead, that she might have grasped, struggled one more time before finally dying. But even in this truthful confession, investigators believe he's still lying, still minimizing, still protecting his ego, because the truth, the full, complete truth, is too ugly even for Chris Watts to admit. The interrogation room where Chris Watts confessed is just a room now. Other suspects sit in that same chair. Other crimes are solved within those walls. But for those who worked the Watts case, that room will always be the place where they watched a man's soul, if he ever had one, reveal itself as utterly empty. Let's talk about what you just witnessed. Because the Chris Watts interrogation is now taught in law enforcement academies as a textbook example of how to break a suspect. Agents Tammy Lee and Graham Coder didn't just get lucky. They used specific proven psychological techniques that have been refined over decades of criminal investigations. Let's break down exactly what they did and why it worked. Technique number 1, building rapport. In the beginning, the agents don't accuse Chris. They are sympathetic, understanding. They offer him water. They let him use the bathroom, make him comfortable. Why? Because suspects are more likely to confess to someone who they see as an ally, not an enemy. Agent Lee said, Chris, I can see this is hard for you. Take your time. We are not here to judge you. This isn't genuine sympathy. It's strategy, and it works. Technique number 2, confrontation. After the polygraph fails, the agents shift. Now they tell Chris directly, we know you're lying. This creates cognitive dissonance. Chris thought he was in control, thought he was fooling them. Now he knows he's not. The agents don't ask, did you kill them? They state, you know where they are, and you need to tell us. This subtle shift from question to statement removes Chris's ability to simply deny. Technique number 3, team development, minimization. This is the most crucial technique. The agents give Chris a team, a morally acceptable reason for why he committed the crime. Agent Lee said, Chris, I don't think you planned this. I think you loved your family. But something happened that night. Shanann said something, did something, and you snapped. That's not murder, Chris. That's a tragedy. They are not excusing the crime. They are offering him a psychological exit ramp, a way to confess without seeing himself as a monster. And it works. Chris starts with Shanann killed the girls, still blaming others, but eventually admits his role, accepting the minimized version they offered. Technique number 4, overcoming objections. Every time Chris says, I didn't do it, the agents have a response ready. Chris, I would never hurt my family. Agent Coder, Chris, the polygraph says otherwise. Your body is telling us the truth, even if your mouth isn't. They systematically dismantle every denial, every excuse, every lie. Technique number 5, obtaining the confession. Once Chris starts talking, the agents let him. They don't interrupt. They don't challenge details yet. They just let the confession flow. Only after he's fully committed to his story do they start poking holes in it. Agent Coder said, Chris, you said you saw Shanann killing Sissy on the baby monitor. But the monitor doesn't record. How did you see it? Trap sprung. Confession happens in stages. Stage 1, I don't know where they are. Stage 2, Shanann killed the girls, I killed Shanann. Stage 3, I killed Shanann, but the girls were alive when I left. Stage 4, I killed them at Cervi. Stage 5, months later, I'd been planning it for weeks. Each stage is closer to the truth, but investigators believe even stage 5 isn't complete. Why did these techniques work on Chris Watts specifically? Reason number 1, narcissism. Chris couldn't stand being seen as the bad guy. The agents gave him a way to be the victim. Shanann pushed you to do it, and his ego grabbed onto it. Reason number 2, desire for control. Chris thought he could outsmart the investigators, thought he could give them just enough to satisfy them while maintaining his innocence. His arrogance was his downfall. Reason number 3, relief. After 3 days of lying, of maintaining the facade, Chris was exhausted. Part of him wanted to confess. The agents gave him permission to do so. Reason number 4, evidence. The physical evidence was overwhelming. Neighbors' camera, phone records, GPS data. Chris knew they were closing in. Confessing was his attempt to control the narrative one last time. This interrogation is now ranked alongside other famous confessions. Russell Williams, Canadian colonel who killed 2 women. Jodi Arias, killed boyfriend, changed story multiple times. Cassie Anthony, though she never fully confessed. What makes the Watts interrogation unique is how completely he broke, from perfect husband to family annihilator in less than 8 hours. Today, this interrogation is used to train FBI agents, police detectives, and criminal investigators worldwide. It's a case study in reading body language, detecting deception, building psychological pressure, obtaining reliable confessions, but it's also a warning about the read technique's dangers. Critics argue that the read technique can produce false confessions, that vulnerable people, especially those with intellectual disabilities or mental illness, can be coerced into confessing to crimes they didn't commit. The minimization approach, it was an accident, not murder, can make innocent people think confessing will get them lenient treatment. But in the Watts case, there is no question of innocence. The physical evidence was irrefutable. The confession simply sped up the inevitable. That room, those chairs, that table, they are not special. What happened there was the result of training, experience, and psychological expertise, and one man's inability to keep lying when confronted with the truth. So, what have we learned? We've watched a man who appeared to have everything, a beautiful wife, 2 precious daughters, a baby on the way, destroy it all because his ego couldn't handle divorce. We have seen how trained investigators spotted his lies from the very first interview, and how they systematically dismantled his defenses until he had nowhere left to hide. We've learned about the psychological techniques used to break suspects, and why those techniques work so effectively on Christopher Watts. But more importantly, we've remembered 3 innocent people whose lives were stolen. Shanann Ann Watts was more than just a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, a mother, an entrepreneur, a person who loved deeply and lived fully. She documented her life not out of vanity, but out of joy. She was proud of her family, proud of her journey, proud of the life she built. Bella and Celeste Watts were just beginning their lives, 4 and 3 years old. They loved their parents. They loved each other. They had hopes, dreams, personalities. Bella was thoughtful and caring. Sissy was energetic and joyful. They deserved to grow up, to go to school, make friends, fall in love, have their own families. And Nicole Watts never got a chance at all, never took a breath, never felt sunshine, never heard his mother's voice. except from inside the womb. These aren't just names in a true crime story. They were real people, and their absence leaves a hole that can never be filled. Christopher Watts sits in prison today. He will die there. And unlike his victims, he gets time to read, to write, to think, to exist. Some people think that's not enough, that he should have faced execution, that death is the only appropriate punishment for what he did. Others believe that living with what he has done, day after day after day, for 30 or 40 years is a worse punishment than death. But here's the question that haunts everyone who studied this case. Could this have been prevented? Were there warning signs, red flags, moments when someone could have intervened? Looking back, yes. Chris becoming distant and secretive. Shanann's intuition that something was wrong. Friends noticing the change in their relationship. The affair with Nicole Kessinger. But hindsight is 2020. In the moment, this seemed like normal marital problems, the kind that millions of couples experience. No one could have predicted Chris would choose murder. What we can do is learn and share these lessons. 1. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't dismiss your intuition. 2. Know the warning signs. Sudden personality changes, secrecy, financial stress, affairs. This can be precursors to violence. 3. Have an escape plan. If you are in a relationship that feels unsafe, have a plan. Know where you go, who you call, what you do. 4. Check on your friends. Nicole Atkinson saved this case. Her immediate response when Shanann didn't answer potentially prevented Chris from staging a more elaborate cover-up. Check on your people. 5. Digital evidence matters. In the modern age, almost every crime leaves a digital trail. Security cameras, phone records, GPS data, they all tell the truth. If this video impacted you, and I know it's heavy, please consider subscribing to this channel. We don't just tell true crime stories, we analyze them, we learn from them, we try to understand the psychology, the investigation techniques, the forensic breakthroughs that solved these cases. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we are going to keep diving deep into cases that changed criminal investigation. Leave a comment and let me know, what case should I cover next? Should I analyze the Golden State Killer and how DNA genealogy caught him after 40 years? Or the Una Bomber and how linguistic analysis broke that case? Or maybe another interrogation breakdown like Jodi Arias or Russell Williams? Let me know in the comments. Your suggestions directly influence what I cover. If you found this analysis valuable, hit the like button. It helps the algorithm show the video to more people who are interested in understanding criminal psychology and investigation techniques, and share it with someone who loves true crime. This is the kind of deep dive analysis you won't find on other channels. Finally, remember Shanann, Bella, and Susie, not as victims, but as people who lived, loved, and deserved so much better. The story is a tragedy, but it's also a reminder to cherish the people we love, to trust our instincts when something feels wrong, and to never take a single day for granted. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and remember, behavior reveals